All right, guys, let's walk through with actually solving a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula over here to the right. Now, you spent some time, ideally, just seeing where all these come from, where it's derived from. Now, this is what we're going to be using it for, is to solve an equation like this. All right, we've learned to possibly solve this by completing the square, by graphing, by trying to factor this, but this quadratic formula, if we plug in A values, B values, and C values from this equation into this formula, it will give us our solutions. All right, so the first thing I want to be sure we're clear of is what is an A, what is a B, what is a C? Well, as we learned, the leading coefficients, and now we're out in front of x squared, that is our A. Whatever is attached to the x is the B, and our constant here is a C. Now, as on the previous page notes, if there is no B value or C value, they just will be equal to 0 when we plug them in. We'll do an example like that soon. So now I have my A is equal to 6. I like to write these off to the side so I can plug them in later. B is 5 and C is negative 4. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite my quadratic equation, my quadratic formula with my values. All right. So it is negative B. So negative 5. Now it will be plus or minus the square root of b squared. My b is 5 squared. First time I'm just going to write it all out. Minus, it's always the constant 4 times a is 6 times c is negative 4. I'm just going to extend my radical sign there. All divided by 2a, or 2 times 6. Now, this represents two different solutions, and as I go through, you'll see why. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do negative 5 plus all this divided by 2 times 6. That's one of my solutions. And the second solution is going to be negative 5 minus this divided by 2 times 6, okay? But before I go through that process, I want to figure out what all this is, this radicand, what the value of that radicand is going to be. So I'm just going to continue it. Negative 5 plus or minus. Now comes the time where I can do some math. I know 5 squared is 25. And now I have a negative 4 times a 6 times a negative 4. All that equal ends up being, that's negative 24 times negative 4, ends up being plus 96. So this is equal to positive 96. And all of that is divided by 2 times 6, or 12. All right, again, I'm just going to continue simplifying this. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 and 96 makes 121 divided by 12. And for my first example, yes, this value does equal a perfect square. So x will equal negative 5. The square root of 121 is 11 plus or minus 11 divided by 12. So at this moment, this is now when I can split it into my two different equations. I can say x is going to equal negative 5 plus 11 divided by 12, the plus sign. And my second equation is going to be x equals negative 5 minus 11 divided by 12. Now I'm going to figure out these values here. X can be negative 5 plus 11 gives me 6 over 12, or 1/2. So one of my solutions is 1/2. Or x equals negative 5 minus 11 gives me negative 16 over 12. Or simplify that to negative 4/3. So my two solutions are 1/2 and negative 4/3.